Hi, I'm Matt Farmer, Program Manager in the Azure API Management team. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can safely and effectively manage changes to your APIs, keep developers informed about those changes, and help consumers of your APIs understand the versions that you have. If you've not come across Azure API Management before, it's a service from Microsoft allowing you to effectively publish your enterprise APIs, mediate them to allow security, scale, and transformation, and let developers easily discover them through a developer portal. It's a cloud-hosted, turnkey, fully managed service, and it works with APIs running in the cloud or on-premise, and it abstracts, protects, and optimizes your APIs. The developer portal supports app developer engagement, and it provides insights and analytics to help you understand the use of your APIs. You can find out more about the service on our website. This video is about how you manage change in your APIs using Azure API Management. We refer to this as API versions and revisions. Let's take a quick moment to talk about versioning of APIs. It's quite a highly debated subject. There's a myriad of different opinions on how to approach it, whether to version or not, whether to use semantic versioning. What's a breaking change, and should you be aware of how you communicate that change to customers? Where do you place version information? There's a whole bunch of different approaches. So how do we take the approach in Azure API Management? Well, first, we natively understand versions throughout the whole system, but it's an opt-in. You don't have to take it. We give you a whole bunch of different approaches to actually apply versions to your APIs, and we give you a way to inform developers and control when changes get adopted. So let's take a look at how versions and revisions actually work in Azure API Management. Here you can see an API without any versions or revisions, as you would have seen in the system up until this feature was added. Now, when we add versions, we see the path of the individual versions followed by the path of any revisions that you have. Versions are available for your customers to see. Revisions are available only for you to see. That might be a little bit confusing, but it'll all become clear when we have a look at it in the demo. Okay, so we've got an API management instance here, and we're going to go to the APIs tab to explain how versions and revisions help you manage change. The first thing we're going to do is look at revisions. Now, revisions are a way of making changes safely, allowing you to make them in confidence that you're not interrupting your developers. Let me show you how that works. So we've got a few APIs already in our instance here, and we're going to add a revision to Fitness Conference API. So this is our customer, Contoso Fitness, and they're running a conference. And we imagine that during the conference, they want to add the ability for people to provide feedback. Now, you could just make the change here within the API and it'll instantly be reflected. But what revisions allow you to do is make those changes and try them out. So we're going to go to the Revisions tab and add a new revision. Now, you see the new revision has been added. We've given it a description, and you'll notice we have what's called the revision selector here at the top. And we can see revision 1 and the icon to mark that it's online for people to call, and revision 2 that we're going to go and edit. Now, when we make changes to revision 2, they're completely isolated. Nobody calling the API will see them, and there'll be no updates on the developer portal. So let's quickly add a new operation. Post feedback, and let's assume we've implemented a backend for it for the purposes of the demo. So now you'll see that we have post feedback in our revision here. To prove that it doesn't exist in revision 1, I'll hop to revision 1 and you can see that it's not there. Now let's assume that I also wanted to test out this revision to make sure it worked okay. So I can go to the test tab, select the feedback operation, and I can try out a request. Now, it will give me a 404 not found this time because it's just a new operation. I haven't implemented a backend. But what you can see is the revision URL just under my cursor here. So each revision is given its own specific revision URL, and here it's marked as semicolon rev equals 2. That shows you you're calling the URL provided for the revision and not the real production instance. Let's assume we've made our changes okay, and we're happy now to put this revision into production. So what we can do is we can take the revision and make it current. And here's where the part about informing your developers and keeping them up to date comes in. I can post a change to the public changelog for this API. That appears on the developer portal, which I'll show you in a minute. So if I say, add new feedback operation and save, what will happen now is revision 2, you notice the icon has changed color, and revision 2 is marked as current. The public callers to the API will now see that feedback operation. And you'll see also in the API Management console, we've made a change log note. If I quickly open up the developer portal, we'll see that the change has been reflected in the Fitness Conference API. So we now have a feedback operation, whoops. We now have a feedback operation, and we have a change history notification to say that I've added it. So that's how we manage change when we want to keep those changes, informing developers of what we're doing without providing additional versions. That revision has been completely separate and only for me as an administrator to see. Now, if I want to run multiple versions of the same API, let's see how we do that. Let's assume that Fitness Conference API had an app built behind it, and the next year that the fitness conference is run, there's also suppliers that want additional operations on that API. But you only really want those suppliers using that particular version of the API, and this is where versioning comes in. I can add a version of Fitness Conference API, and it gives me a whole bunch of options for creating that. So as discussed earlier, I can choose between things like path, header, or query string for how my API is called. I'm going to choose path for now and give this API a version identifier of v1. Let's add it to a product so we can call it, and you'll see the URL that it's going to be called on. So it's fitconf/v1. Something to be aware of about how the version identifier is it can be any value. So you can use dates, you can use names, or you can use numerics. You can use integers if you wish. It's entirely up to you and what's appropriate for you. So now you'll see I've created a new version. I have the original API, so we're not breaking any of the callers calling that particular path, but now we also have v1. Now, this API, v1, is a completely separate API. I can load a new definition into it, I can change the operations, it's completely free for me to change. It's only loosely coupled to its original. If I go and have a look at it on the developer portal now, I will see that Fitness Conference API has both the original available and v1 for developers to call. So that's a very quick tour through versions and revisions in Azure API Management. Thanks for watching. You can try out versions and revisions in API Management today. Go to the new Azure portal, spin up an instance, and let us know what you think. Tutorials, documentation, and references can be found at the link you see on the slide, as well as more information about the service on our blog. Thanks very much.